Coming into this round, we had 2 teams on 100% and 2 teams without a win. Now we've only got 1 of each. My name's Mark. Let's talk rugby. First up, we had Ospreys 16, Stormers 16. Stormers lose their 100% record, but they are still unbeaten for the season. Ospreys now have 2 draws in just 5 rounds. So first half was pretty low scoring. 1 penalty to the Ospreys and 2 to the Stormers for 6-3 at half time. 10 minutes into the second half, Myler slots another penalty for the Ospreys to tie it up at 6-all. Then we have the first try of the game a few minutes later. Stormers have possession in their own half. Ospreys are putting pressure on them, but they get a little bit disjointed in defence. Stormers are able to move the ball quickly, find a mismatch, put someone through a hole. Then there's cover back there for Ospreys, but Stormers also have support on the break. Able to draw and pass, put the wet in pretty much under the sticks. Converted then for 13-6 to the Stormers. Ospreys then start to kind of work their way back into the game again. Myler gets a penalty with 12 minutes to go to bring it back to 9-13. Stormers then get a penalty of their own a couple of minutes later to put it back out to 7 points, 16-9. Then Ospreys manage to get themselves over in the corner with 4 minutes to go, and Myler is able to convert from out on the touchline. Conditions weren't great. It looked a bit rainy and a bit windy, and he was right out on the touchline as well, but still he was able to nail the kick to tie it up at 16-all. Right at the end then, 30 seconds or so to go, Stormers on attack. They're not really making all that much progress, so they go for a speculative drop goal. It goes to the right and wide, and then game kind of peters out after that. Ospreys have possession, they knock on, Stormers get the ball, it's in the red, and they have advantage, but they knock on just after. I heard the Stormers on the highlights asking the referee to review something that happened in the build-up to that, but I didn't really see it on the highlights what actually happened, but the referee was having none of it. He blew up. So 16-all. Stormers probably would have seen this as one of the games that they targeted for a win, an away win in Europe. Ospreys are probably going to be the happy with 2, picking up the 2 points out of this. Also on Friday, we had Connacht 0, Leinster 10. This one, very low scoring overall, but it was actually a pretty exciting game to watch. This is the one that I watched live this week. I've got a full review of it on the channel as well if you want to go check that out. So Leinster started pretty well. They get a try through Foley. So basically they had a driving maul from a line out. Van der Fleer breaks off that maul. He surges towards the line. He's able then to pop the ball to Foley. Foley goes in the corner, and then Burnouts the conversion from out wide. Connacht then tried to do the same thing up the other end, but Leinster were able to halt their momentum. They tried then to spin it to the other wing, but the pass was a bit inaccurate and it went into touch. Leinster were able to clear. Connacht were putting on a lot of pressure through much of the game, and they made Leinster's line out very insecure for them. They were getting people up, they were stealing it, they were making it very awkward for Leinster to secure their own the ball, and even when they did secure their own the ball, you know, Connacht made it so difficult for them to do that it wasn't really a reliable platform for them. And then early on, Leinster had a bit of a nudge in the scrum, but Connacht improved in the second half, and they were winning penalties at scrum time as well. Connacht in defence were very aggressive, more aggressive than I've seen them this season. On attack, they seem to be a little flat and a little kind of like there wasn't much in terms of options for the ball carrier either. You know, so the Leinster defence, it was pretty easy for them to read a lot of Connacht's attack. Leinster then, towards the end of the game, with a few minutes left, they get a penalty. Young Frawley pops it over to make it 10-0. Connacht then, they're going in search of at least a losing bonus point from it. With the clock in the red, They get a penalty right about halfway. They decided the best chance to get anything out of the game is to kick to the corner and then either play for a penalty in a more kickable position, or maybe even a try to just get that losing bonus point. But Carty, who had a pretty decent game overall, he kicks it, puts a bit too much in it, and he kicks it dead. And that's the game over. So Leinster still 100% for the season. They probably would have liked before this game to have won a bit more comfortably, but they'll be happy to come away with the win. Connacht, as I said, defence looks improved. Attack didn't look as good as it looked against Munster, but if they can put those two elements together, they're gonna find form at some point during the season. Into Saturday's games then, and probably the pick of the round in terms of if you're going to pick a game to either watch in full or the highlights, this is probably the one. So we have Lions 37, Ulster 39. Ulster start straight out of blocks. Balakoon scores a try in the first minute. That guy, he's very unlucky to only have 2 caps for Ireland. I think at some point he is going to get a run in the team and he's going to show people on the world stage what he's all about. Lions will come back then. They get a try through Horn, and then they get a second one as well, not long before half-time. And they've got the half-time line. I think it was something like 18:15 at half-time. I'm trying to go from memory on that one. But then I think the crucial point for Ulster was that third quarter between half-time and about 60 minutes, because they score 4 tries in that period, unanswered from the Lions. You had McCloskey, who a lot of people are touting for, again, kind of like Balakoon, where he's a guy who, based on his skill set and his highlight reel, you would think would have more Ireland caps. But then I guess you look at the guys who are there already, and it's kind of a bit unlucky really for them. I think the two of them are the kind that if they were the guy in possession, it would actually be hard on the form that they're putting in to replace them. But because they are the challengers, it's just that little bit harder for them to break into the team. Ulster look like they've got a commanding lead in this one. It's going to be difficult for the Lions to come back, but that's what they do. They get another try just at the start of the third quarter. Then Horn gets his second, and then he finishes off his hat-trick as well with about 4 minutes to go. And Ulster, just before then, Doak had kicked a penalty, and that put Ulster on 39 points, and that penalty turned out to be crucial because the Lions came really, really close to catching them and overtaking them there. I think in terms of who's going to be happy with this, Lions can be happy with the way they came back. Ulster are going to be happy that they actually did it and they held on and they got that win in South Africa. And people will say, oh, the Lions are the weakest of the South African teams. But looking at the South African teams versus any of the other countries in the URC at the moment, to say that you're the weakest of the South African teams is still putting you as a top team. Like, there are very few teams who are going to score that many tries against the Lions in South Africa. From Ulster's point of view then, it's just that little bit of like an experience that they can come back to in their heads and in their locker for later on in the season, where Ulster have had this thing when it really counts, like talking about semi-finals or finals or quarterfinals or wherever, and in tight games, they haven't had that kind of little bit extra, that little bit of mental nous to get over the line. And days like this are ones that they're probably going to come back to. And it could be the start of Ulster going from a team who are going to be there or thereabouts to actually getting their hands on a trophy. After that, then we had the Sharks versus the Warriors. So the Warriors actually get the first try of the game. And Warriors can play good rugby. Nobody's denying that. And it was a decent move to put Gordon over. But then Volmink, with about 8 minutes to go in half, goes over for the Sharks. And along with a couple of penalties, they're able to have the halftime lead. But Warriors are still in touch. Second half starts then. Gordon gets a second try. Warriors are then a point back, but from here out, it's all Sharks. Warriors had that ball in hand bit of magic, but the Sharks were able to match that at times as well. Like, some of the hands from the Sharks was brilliant, especially on that first try where it seemed very tight for space, but because the hands were so good, they were able to get out on the outside of the Warriors and get in for that one. Then, as the half wore on, Sharks are going more and more to the maul, and Warriors just didn't have an answer for it. So, first of all, the Sharks were using the maul just to make ground up the field, and then they would break off and use the backs to cut the Warriors open as well. And then after that, then it was like they had at least one. I'm trying to think now. There was at least one drive over that they did from a line out with the maul as well. And again, the Warriors just couldn't stop it. And towards the end, the Sharks were just pulling away all the time. And once Cock went over for the final try, which was pretty good. His one, I believe that was Sharks were attacking on the right hand side, and then there was a kick over to the left hand side in behind the Warriors defense. Cock takes the ball a full pelt on the bounce and goes over there, and both of the Sharks wingers are actually pretty good in this one. And as I said, kind of Warriors, they were there for maybe about 40 or 50 minutes. But once the Sharks went to the maul, that was it. Like, it was kind of game over from there. So Warriors, they're not going to be happy with the overall performance. They will take some things out of it. The Sharks, another decent win for them, and they're looking pretty good. Cardiff 31, Dragons 14. Another Welsh derby for Cardiff and another win. First 10 minutes or so, teams are kind of feeling each other out. Then a couple of quick fire tries from Cardiff, from Adams and Kerr, put them out into a lead that Dragons found very hard to pull them back from. Dragons did get a try in the first half through O'Brien, and that was converted by Hanrahan. But then a few minutes later, Botham goes over for Cardiff to extend that lead. And then in the second half, Dragons, they did get a second try, but it was kind of similar to the last few Dragons performances that we've seen, where they are showing a little bit of ambition, and that they have that there is improvement there. They are making improvements in certain areas, but they just, once a team gets ahead of them, they kind of find it very hard to actually pull them back. And Cardiff just extended the lead in the last 10 minutes or so with another try from Young. So bonus point win for Cardiff. They're going to be happy with the last couple of weeks. Really helped them to get their season back on track. But now they've got to show that they can produce it against teams, non-Welsh teams, and also away from home as well. For the Dragons, they are kind of slipping back into where we'd normally expect them to be. It's kind of, in the table wise, and you kind of feel like they've got to produce a result rather than just a performance at this stage. Edinburgh Benetton, not really much to say about this one in terms of the contest itself. Edinburgh got 9 tries to Benetton's 1, and it was just very one-sided. Edinburgh, a very slick team on attack, and they showed that in spades today against a very poor Benetton performance. As I said previously, the thing with Benetton now is they've shown they're competitive at home, but they've got to produce better performances away from home if they think anybody's going to take them seriously at the sharp end of the URC. For Edinburgh, it's nice to build confidence and get that many tries, but they're kind of guilty of the same kind of thing where they can look great against certain opposition, but they still need to make that step up to really challenge the big boys. Scarlets 36, Zebre 12. So early on, Zebre were in it a little bit. Scarlets did get a couple of tries in the first half hour or so. Zebre got a try themselves as well after about 13 minutes. So they were within touching distance. But then just before halftime and just after halftime, Scarlet go in for a try each. So another 2 tries for them. That's their bonus point wrapped up. Zebre get what turns out to be another consolation try for them from Pani, and Scarlets, as the game was kind of winding down, add a 5th try just to make the scoreline look that little bit rosier for them. Scarlets going to be happy with a bonus point win here. At the start of the season, you probably would have predicted a similar scoreline to this, given how Zebre have been in past seasons. Zebre on this performance, though, given what they have produced this season, I found that this was fairly disappointing. Kind of getting worried now that after that little bit of momentum that they had at the start of the season, that they're going back to their kind of older ways of once they get a little bit behind, the head goes down, and then the other team is able to pile on the points. Munster 31, Bulls 17. So Munster's first game at Thomond Parks for this season. They were really up for this one. Pack were the guys who delivered the win here. Carberry at 10 did have a pretty good game compared to what he's produced, earlier in the season from 15. He was actually playing at 10 today, and then last season as well. But it was really all about the Munster pack. They really bullied the Bulls pack, and you don't see that much with the Bulls or many of the South African teams either. Coombs got himself a couple of tries. I think he got either, there was a few times where he was kind of stopped short and held up and things like that as well. And we've seen that this season in other games as well, where he's really got that ability to carry close to the line and put big pressure on defences. He comes out with a couple of tries from there. A lot of it was kind of the pack driving and then having people splinter off or just picking and going and stuff like that. But Lockman's try was it is another one for the big boys, for the forwards, but for this one, Munster are on attack, and I think they had advantage. And then there's a bit of a kick to nothing put through, speculative kick put through, and Bulls, I can't remember who it was for the Bulls, but one of the Bulls players goes to try and get it, and Lockman is coming in, and the Bulls player knocks it on. Lockman is there, then he stabs it through, runs on and dives on the ball for the try. Bulls then, in the second half, they're able to get a couple of tries themselves, but they never really got within distance that you thought that Munster were in trouble of, losing that one. They never really got enough momentum to put that pressure on Munster, because you got to think though, if the Bulls had scored their tries a little bit earlier, or if they were able to get a third try and just put that little bit of doubt in Munster's mind that, Munster could have been a little bit fragile there, but they weren't able to do that, and Munster were able to see out the game in the end. Munster did look a lot better in a lot of areas. Set piece was better. Forward pack definitely delivered. Backs are starting to look a little bit better, but there's still work to do there as well. Like they're not like, purring or anything like that. Like they look so bad, so desperate at the start of the season that what they're producing now is a big improvement on that. But it still doesn't mean that they're going to tear teams apart anytime soon. But it was nice to see Carby back in 10. That guy needs, I think, a run at 10 to get his confidence back as well. And for the Bulls, this was probably a little bit of a shock for them. They probably thought that they had a decent chance of getting the win against Munster, given Munster's form for the rest of the season. But Bulls have had a pretty good start to the season themselves, and I can't see them producing, such a subpar performance 2 or 3 rounds in a row. So I think they're probably going to bounce back from this pretty quickly.